Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. Wednesday, halfway through the week. Hope it's gone well for you so far. If not, hey, you still got the latter half of the work week to go. Friday will kick things off, of course, with the Friday Road Show at Scramblers, our new partner sponsoring that. Shirley's Heating and Air. Big thank you to those good people. Last 24 hours, a lot of advancement, a lot of winning once again. What ground was lost with Zelensky's little hiccup in the Oval Office a couple of weeks ago that apparently was encouraged by a number of Democrats. That ground that was lost has been regained, and potentially then some. We'll have audio coming up from Secretary of State Marco Rubio announcing that the Ukrainians have accepted a deal that would involve a 30-day ceasefire. Never really liked the temporary ceasefire deals. I understand that they must have some sort of play in things, but I don't know. To me, it's the temporary nature of I don't know. There's just something about it that it seems to lack I don't want to say a seriousness, but let's just nail down a deal. Just nail it down. So the 30 days, it's sort of like, well, we know after 30 days the cease deal's off, but hey, I'm not a master negotiator in any capacity. So this obviously is so much closer to ending the meat grinder of death that has been the battle between Ukraine and Russia, in which for the 3 years under the Biden administration in which it was occurring, there was no attempt to even stop it. When you think about it, it seems like such a no-brainer, doesn't it? And some of that is Trump as president. It seems like a no-brainer. Hey, can we stop this thing? Particularly when both sides are dug in, neither of them, through the situation on the ground, appearing as if they have any chance to actually win it. Putin's ultimate goal, take over Ukraine, that in no meaningful way appeared to be in the cards. I mean, for Pete's sakes, they were having to get troops from North Korea. This is the state of affairs for the Russians. The Ukrainians obviously just completely reliant on massive amounts of money from European allies and from the United States, not to mention actual help when it came to communications and intelligence, and still with all of that, no ground being made. And so it just seems like such a no-brainer. Hey, guys, maybe we should figure out a way to stop this. But for whatever reason, that never was even just talked about as an option under the Biden administration. No, let's just keep the killing going. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. Continuing resolution passed. What exactly that means and why that now puts Democrats in the Senate in a particularly uncomfortable position. You've got this battle between Trump and Representative Thomas Massie. Massie, the one Republican who voted against it. And then there is, this stuff is so predictable. News leader, Springfield protests will press Burleson on town halls as he calls them ineffective. Well, they are ineffective, particularly if you're somebody like Congressman Burleson, a congressperson in which constituents who really genuinely have meaningful questions or conversations are able to connect with him and the people in his office. It's not as if he's a person in hiding and he's out at Scramblers. He pops up there. He has different luncheon events with business leaders. I mean, this is a guy that is constantly meeting with constituents. He gets invited to speak at events. He comes. He gets invited to, specific organizations that they want to do Q&As, and he shows up. You could understand if he were one of these members that just refused to ever meet with anyone. Never. I mean, you're like, does this guy even exist? Who is this individual? Who's this person? And you're like, can we at least have a town hall? Because then we can ask some questions. But that's not what we're dealing with here. So for a member of Congress like Burleson, who is so easily accessible, town hall meetings are ineffective. Unless, of course, your point is to disrupt. And this is what we're seeing. It's not the first time that Democrats have done this. This is an old game they play when they're not in charge. They show up at town hall meetings. They get left-wingers to fill seats as quickly as possible so that constituents that genuinely want to hear what it is that their elected official has to say, genuinely wants to give feedback, won't have seats, and then they can be very disruptive, the left-wingers. So they pretend as if they're there for meaningful purposes, only then to protest and to scream and yell, you're stealing Medicaid, you're stealing Social Security. If you're new to the game of politics, this isn't anything new. This comes around every so often. Oh, here we go again. And so intelligent members of Congress recognize this is a waste of time because these things are all setups. And the left-wingers, they get their media, their allies in the media to, write these stories as if this is just a perfectly legitimate group of citizens and all they want to do is talk with their lawmaker, but he says it's just a waste of time to talk to the peons. And that's, of course, the play that the news leader is putting forth. We've had difficulty. Usually weekly we're able to talk with Congressman Burleson, but with the continuing resolution vote, and there's just been a lot of timetable shifting, and so far this week probably we will not be able to have him on this week. It just kind of keeps bouncing around, but it's completely understandable as busy as it is. So I just wanted to mention that because I know yesterday I mentioned, he's going to be coming up after 6:30, and then I think I failed to mention that he wasn't, or why he ended up not joining us, but an update on that for you. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line is 447-KSGF. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly cloudy skies with a high near 81. Tonight mostly cloudy with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 79. And on Friday we'll see a slight chance for storms in the afternoon and then sunny skies with a high near 78.
And as Jesse mentioned there, it is last day to register to vote.
That's right.
Very, very important elections, school board elections. These are the people that are in charge of the direction of your schools. This is where they plant the seeds, or have the ability so often to plant the seeds of the very destructive DEI and CRT and all of this evolution of taking schools and evolving them from places in which young people learn and get educated, and then switching that to a world of activism. This is the indoctrination that they work very hard to do. And this is why increasingly in this country we see that we're falling behind the rest of the world. And there are those who are like, we need to keep doing the same thing. And then there are those that are like, hey, we have real big problems here. And so in this area, it's important. If you think because my kid goes to a smaller school, we don't have to worry about that stuff, you cannot do that. Springfield, for its part, is the largest school district in the state of Missouri. Like, how can that be? You got St. Louis, you have Kansas City. They have different school districts within the city. Springfield's got the one. So it makes it the largest in the state. Pretty significant stuff. And if you think, well, I don't have kids, what difference does it make? Well, those kids are going to be taking care of you in a hospice center one day, or wherever it may be. Every time you get frustrated, you're like, oh, these young people. Well, guess it does affect you. So last day to get registered for the upcoming April election, registered to vote, and it doesn't take long, is today. If you don't know how to do it, just visit or get a hold of your county clerk, and that individual or that office will tell you. And we have sample ballots up
at ksgf.com in the homepage slider.
Boom shakalaka. And for the Springfield school board members, There are opportunities for you to hear from them, from Sarah's show and Kyle's show, and the best place to do that?
KSGF.com under the podcast section. If you want to hear all four of them in a very short, condensed interview, that's on mine. So you'll go to the Sarah Myers Show podcast. If you want to hear longer, extended interviews, we have one with Kelly Byrne under the All Out Law podcast. And Dave Myers will be joining Kyle this Saturday at 9 a.m.
Yes, for those that don't know, I should be more specific. I said Kyle Wyatt, host of All Out Law, which airs on Saturday mornings. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. There was an announcement made from Saudi Arabia yesterday. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and one of his colleagues. Now, there, of course, was great advancement towards actually ending the war between Ukraine and Russia. And then, apparently, before that Oval Office meeting, Democrats had gotten a hold of Zelensky and convinced him this was a fake deal. Don't take it. And then, of course, we had that entire situation play out. And it's just remarkable to watch Democrats actively try to keep a war going and support war. I'm sure today's news will be very disappointing for them. I want to continue to promote the war and keep the war going, while Trump, of course, is trying to get to a peaceful agreement. And that ground lost has been made up and arguably even gotten a bit further than that, according to Rubio's announcement yesterday.
The National Security Advisor and the Secretary of State are giving comments after their meeting with Ukrainian leaders. Let's listen.
His number one interest is ending this war once and for all. Today, we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable and accounts for their interests, their security, their ability to prosper as a nation. I want to personally we both want to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty, for hosting us, for making this possible. They've been instrumental in this process, and we're very grateful to them for hosting us here today. And hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians, and we hope that they'll say yes, to peace. The ball's now in their court. And but again, the president's objective here is number one, above everything else. He wants the war to end, and I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
This is now National Security Advisor Waltz.
Just to add to the Secretary's comments, the Ukrainian delegation today made something very clear, that they share President Trump's vision for peace. They share his determination to end the fighting, to end the killing, to end the tragic kind of meat grinder of people and national treasure that's happening on the front in Ukraine. Number one. Number two, they made concrete steps and concrete proposals, not only accepting our proposal for a full ceasefire, which you can see the details of which are in our joint statement that we released together. But we also got into substantive details on how this war is going to permanently end, what type of guarantees they're going to have for their long-term security and prosperity, but also really looking at what it's going to take to finally end this the horrific fighting. The other piece that I just want to make very clear is President Trump started this diplomatic effort in the Oval Office, talking to both leaders, both President Putin and President Zelensky back to back. And now that shuttle diplomacy continues. We have a named delegation in terms of next steps from the Russian side. We have a named delegation in terms of next steps from the Ukrainian side. I will talk to my Russian counterpart in the coming days. Secretary Rubio will be with G7 foreign ministers in the next couple of days. We have the NATO Secretary General in the White House on Thursday, and we'll take the process forward from there. So, as a result of that, and I think as a result of this positive step forward, the president has decided to lift the pause on aid. And on our security assistance to Ukraine going forward. And that's effective immediately.
Now, the reference there, and Trump, of course, he's criticized anything he does by the left. And he was withholding aid. You know why? To help get us to this point. Everything Trump does in regards to Russia, in regards to Ukraine, is to move them along. This is why he spoke of last week bringing the hammer down on Russia through additional economic sanctions. Every day, it's adapting to the scenario on the ground. What is it going to take to get them closer and closer and closer? That's his number one priority. That's it. That is it. Number one priority. If you are a person who finds yourself disappointed when an announcement like this is made because, it's just going to make Trump look good, you need to do a human reset. If you're someone who finds yourself emotionally satisfied when something occurs that appears to be a setback to peace between Ukraine and Russia, you need to do a reset of yourself. You need to ask yourself what your priorities are as a human being. When the goal here is to stop the human meat grinder in which hundreds of thousands of human beings are losing their lives. And when it comes closer and closer to that stopping, but you're disappointed because it makes him look good, it's a victory of Trump. You need to ask yourself what your priorities are. If you would rather see, and you may tell yourself, well, of course, I don't want the killing to continue. Well, then ask yourself why you have that instinct. Why is it if you hear a story in which there's some sort of setback, you're like, yeah, see, Need to find wherever that humanity reset button is on yourself, and you just need to hold that down and press it until the light starts blinking. So you know the reset's complete. Is there something wrong with you? Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Odds are, with Trump as president, there is going to be a ceasefire and an end to this thing between Ukraine and Russia. And that is largely because Russia and Ukraine both realize that they just can't continue on like this. No one is, quote, winning. Russia's goal was to get Ukraine. That didn't happen. Didn't happen. And you've got Zelensky's goal here is for everything to go back to the way that it was before. And that isn't going to happen because Russia's not going to go, oh, okay. See, Russia will they've got lots of bodies. They'll just keep at this. And then North Korea has been more than willing to donate their bodies as well. And arguably you could have some of these other countries that decide to step in. And so there's this stalemate. There are a lot of people that feel the only fair ceasefire is one in which Ukraine gets everything it wants and Russia doesn't get anything. Well, that's not how this works. That would be nice, wouldn't it? The only way that works is if Ukraine completely wins and Russia surrenders. That's the only time that you have one side get whatever it wants and the other side gets nothing that it wants, is when there's a surrender, there's a defeat, and that's not in the cards. So the only way that you're going to have the two sides come together and say, all right, we're willing to end this, is if both sides give something up. That's just it. For Zelensky, in all likelihood, it's going to be land. It's, there'll be some other things in there as well. For Putin, it's going to be his desires to fully take Ukraine. He may have to give back some of the occupied territory. Ideally, he would not be able to get any occupied territory. Ideally, he would learn a lesson that you get nothing out of this. Look at all of the money, all of the lives that you lost for absolutely nothing. But again, that's not in the cards. So at least you end up with a situation, one, where the killing stops, and two, the calculation is still one in which it's probably not worth it. Where you look at it and it doesn't necessarily encourage this sort of behavior because, yes, he was allowed to keep the Crimean Peninsula and, a few other pockets in eastern Ukraine, but in terms of the cost, really wasn't worth it. That's what we call reality. That's how mature adults look at a situation like this. Now, there's a big question, and we're going to take a break and then get a traffic update. So how is it that the left, how are they going to deal with this? Right? Because they can't stand the idea of Trump ending this thing. Because he's Trump, and Trump is evil, and so if he wants peace, then that must mean peace is evil, and so the war has to continue. Now, they tell themselves, of course we're for peace. All right, so how does all that fit together? So I want to share that. Plus the latest Canada, Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, backing down after just 24 hours earlier saying Canada will not back down. This is on the the tariffs on electricity to 3 states in the United States, Michigan, Minnesota, and New York. All that ahead. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see partly cloudy skies with a high near 81. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 79. And looking ahead to Friday, we'll see a slight chance for storms in the afternoon. Other than that, sunny skies with a high near 78.
Yesterday from Saudi Arabia, Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz announcing that Ukraine had accepted a deal that would involve a ceasefire, and they're going to the Russians with it. I believe that with Trump as president, it is inevitable that this will come to an end. So how is it that the left is going to deal with that? How, when it comes to history, will they rewrite it? Because Lord knows they could never give Trump credit for something positive. Never. Especially peace, because Trump is this warmonger. He's going to start World War III. We're all going to die with Trump as president. There will be two forms of rationalization by the left. One will be that this really wasn't that good of a deal for Ukraine, that Russia got a sweetheart deal. But as time goes on, the reality will be that it ended. I suspect that the left will, as time marches on, claim that really Trump did not have much to do with it. It was Zelensky himself. That ultimately Zelensky was the one who brought about peace. And I predict this based off the past behavior of Democrats, who years after Ronald Reagan won the Cold War, and we saw the collapse of the Soviet Union, tried to rewrite history by claiming that actually Gorbachev actually brought the Soviet Union to an end himself. He was masterful in doing so. The slow end of that era. Ultimately, it was because of the wise and visionary ways of Gorbachev. Reagan just happened to be the opposition. That is how they have tried to rewrite the end of the Cold War. That it wasn't that the Soviet Union lost. It wasn't that Gorbachev lost. He actually, this is what he had planned. This was his master plan all along. So Reagan doesn't deserve really any credit for it. And I suspect that as time marches on, that will be the same approach that they take with any sort of peace deal, should it occur between Ukraine and Russia. That either, again, I think there will be some, well, it was a horrible deal because Trump is an agent of Russia. But I think that all that in the end that will matter is that it came to an end, and how did it come to an end, and people will recognize accurately it's because of Donald Trump, and the pushback will be, well, not really, it was Zelensky. And this is one of those things that only time will tell. It is just, it's full-blown entertaining at this point. Watching some of these people think that they can take on Trump and win. And I'm not here to claim that Trump is totally and completely invincible. But when it comes to dealing with, the one-on-one, and this is what he wants, this is what I want, this idea that you can kind of bluff the guy, it is just like, what? Have you not been paying attention? And the latest example of this is Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario. This is regarding tariffs. And this has been sort of an interesting new spokesperson that has popped up, because we've gone from Trudeau, that has been talking big man, but he became so unpopular. I mean, he was already unpopular, but it just really seemed to seal his fate. So he had to step down as the leader of his party. Then all of a sudden, there really isn't this official voice for the entire country of Canada. I mean, Trudeau has continued up until just recently to be that voice, but almost filling the void is this Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario. And when it came to the tariffs, he's just like, you don't want to take me on. And so the most recent threat was to implement tariffs on electricity that 3 Democrat-run states rely on: New York, Michigan, and Minnesota. They rely on getting electricity from Canada. And so he's like, oh, I'm going to take on Trump. I'm going to be the one guy that takes this guy down. And in fact, it was just yesterday. Ford said on MSNBC, quote, "We will not back down. We will be relentless." Well, I've got some updated audio that is quite contrary to his previous statements that just, once again say America winning. That next, I'm Nick Reed. I want to just jump back quickly because of a text message that came in on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line regarding the ceasefire that Ukraine has agreed to. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State from Saudi Arabia, yesterday announcing that the U.S. was now going to take it to Russia. And the text noting that optimism is good. However, ceasefires in history have also been an opportunity to rearm while peace talks continue. Then when that breaks down, hostilities continue at a higher tempo. And that is true. This is earlier I had noted that I don't really like the ceasefire thing. I will say the difference is that Trump is involved. And the involvement of Trump is a component in which what is traditionally the way things are done don't generally occur because he just doesn't put up with them. And so the accuracy of that text there, noting that generally speaking, the ceasefires are used as a tool by the people who want war to keep continuing on, thinking, okay, well, I can use this ceasefire to my advantage. Trump just won't put up with that for that long because his ultimate goal is to end it altogether. And so if he sees things steering in a direction away from that, whether it is because of the manipulation of ceasefire by the parties involved, he'll take steps in order to correct that. Now, again, he's not a magic man that can make everything completely successful. But the reason that we see so many different outcomes with Trump versus everyone else is because he does things differently. And so that's the only reason that whenever I hear the traditional steps forward, like a ceasefire, in which normally if this were a Biden administration or Obama or even a Bush administration, I'd be like, oh, here we go again. This is just part of the standard. With Trump, I don't feel that way. And it's because he's demonstrated through action that he does not handle these things in the same manner that other people do. But the premise of the text is absolutely correct. Now back to the Ontario Premier Doug Ford. I just think this is lovely. So you got tough talk that's on Doug Ford. He's really Trudeau's out of the way, and there's a new spokesperson for Canada. Although he's been very clear lately, which I find interesting. Now, I'm not speaking on behalf of Canada. I want everyone to understand. I suspect that he's received a few communications like, hey, buddy, you need to make it very clear that your bravado, your chest pounding is on behalf of Ontario, not Canada. Okay, you want to do that, that's fine, but make sure you clearly identify for whom you speak, because he's been pretty clear about that as of late. And he's really been hollering about Trump and talking about you don't want to mess with, Kentucky bourbon. You're going to start, we're going to really, I'm telling you, we're going to put tariffs on things. You think you can tariff us? We'll tariff you. Which the laughable part of all of this is the fact that Canada has tariffs on U.S. products up to almost 400% on some items. This is some of Trump's point here. Trump talking about the 25% tariffs, and so then you have Doug Ford warning, well, we'll just tariff electricity that goes to Michigan, New York, and Minnesota. Quote, this was yesterday. Tuesday on MSNBC, we will not back down. We will be relentless. I apologize to the American people that President Trump decided to have an unprovoked attack on our country, our families, our jobs. It's unacceptable. Let's work together. Let's get to the table if he has issues, and let's sort this out. But we will not back down. And then less than 24 hours later.
I've agreed to suspend temporarily, and we always have that tool in our toolkit, until we sit down, over the next day or two. I'll be heading down to Washington along with Dominic LeBlanc, and we'll have a good discussion. And with any negotiation that we have, there's a point that both parties are heated and the temperature needs to come down. And I thought this was the right decision. They understand how serious we are about the electricity and the tariffs. And rather than going back and forth and having threats to each other, we have both agreed, let cooler heads prevail. We need to sit down and move this forward.
Now, if you listen to him, you'd think that that Trump backed down. Now, maybe I laid this out a little out of order. So Doug Ford yesterday on MSNBC said, we will not back down. And that's when Trump responded with, oh, did I say 25% tariffs? I meant 50. Then it was subsequent to that Doug Ford said, well, now, maybe we should get together and talk about this is all getting a little heated. Oh, is it now? This is how it happens. Trump trying to do a number of different things, but one is to have reciprocity here. Again, there are items in which the Canadians have almost 400% tariffs. When you have these lefties in this country and the Canadians running around screaming about a 25% tariff, over 350% tariffs on some items. So when people like Doug Ford say this is unprovoked, this is not unprovoked. This is just something that the United States has forced the American people to be victims of for years and years and years and years. Just because you've been getting away with it all this time doesn't mean now that we have a president who's looking out for the best interest of Americans is somehow attacking in an unprovoked manner. So that's why Trump acted. Doug Ford says, well, I'll show you. And then Trump says, oh, really? Well, I'll double show you. And then Doug Ford panics. He's getting phone calls, no doubt, from Ford Canada and these different companies that rely on steel. And he calls down to Washington, D.C., and the Trump administration's like, if you want to talk, you can come down here and talk. You can come to us. You just let us know. And it's a demonstration that we're calling the shots on this one. But it is entertaining to see these people that Mexico's no different. Mexico, the president of Mexico, well, we're just really going to show the United, and then within 24 hours, okay, well, now we're going to put 10,000 troops on the border. Do you not know how this plays out? The missing instinct of these individuals that try to take on Trump is the understanding that Trump doesn't bluff. Trump doesn't make a threat on something that he's not willing to go through with. This is part of his approach in understanding him. See, there are going to be a lot of people, and clearly Doug Ford is one of those individuals that said, we will not back down. Here's what we're going to do, no matter what. Doesn't matter what you do to us. Well, that was a bluff. Because Trump says 25 to 50. And, oh, well, never mind. Trump does not make a threat. He makes a promise. I know that's a cliche, but if Trump says, then I'll put a 50% tariff on you, what some of these people are beginning to learn is that he will do that. But the reason he'll do it is because he knows that if he does not do it, then that loses its power. He loses the leverage because other countries will go, well, yeah, he said that over there, but then he backed down. Now, don't mistake, because it can be easy. There are instances in which, Trump has decided to put off tariffs for this amount of time. He's decided to suspend or to lift tariffs. That's not Trump backing down. That is Trump responding to the opposition relenting and giving in. That is Trump saying, listen, we're going to put a tariff on you unless you do this. And then those countries come and say, okay, let's talk. We'll do what it is that you want us to do. And Trump says, okay. And that's why there's a lot of the market uncertainty, which is perfectly natural. And, of course, the left is playing off all of this frantic confusion. This is the way it is going to work for a while. And so there are going to be instances in which Trump says, this is what we're going to do because you all aren't complying. And then those people are going to come running and say, okay, we'll comply. We just need to work out the details. And Trump say, okay, we'll lift this for 30 days. And usually if it's going to be for a period of time, that's the amount of time that he believes is necessary in order to get everything signed and sealed and delivered. And so, and then once it's done, lifting is permanent. Whether it is the threat, it is the application, or it is the removal of tariffs, it is all for one purpose and is the goal of, whatever that particular goal is. And in the end, the broader goal being, when it comes to trade itself, reciprocity. And then, of course, you have a number of issues with a number of other countries like Mexico, border security, fentanyl, and so forth. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed.
There are 3 simple changes I tell all of my arthritis patients to make. Number 1.
A taste of paradise brewed right in the heartland, can it be? Yes, it can, with Kansas Territory Brewing Company's Pineapple Life Coach, or for the more traditional. Tailored for the hardworking men and women, 2 genders who appreciate a reliable, easy drinking experience. That would be Bradford Light with a modest ABV of 3.8%. So whether it's the traditional or the more tropical offerings for you, you can find at some area Price Cutters and some area Macadoodles. And that is, again, Kansas Territory Brewing Company. You can find more about the brewery. So maybe you're going to be in Kansas. Like, wish there was something to do as we drove through Washington, Kansas. Well, there is. Kansas Territory Brewing Company. The site is kansasterritorybrewingco.com. All right, coming up, the continuing resolution, what this means, the battle between Trump and Thomas Massie, calling for Massey to be primaried. That's something that I suspect is going to die and go away, that little battle, for very good reason. Massey, I'm very sympathetic towards. I understand the position from both sides on that particular issue, but now Democrats in the Senate have a real decision to make here, because it's going to take some of them, take 60 votes in order for this to not shut down the government. All that next. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I am Nick Reed. Welcome to the show. We were talking in the previous segment about Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, that 24 hours ago said that the response to Trump's 25% tariffs was going to be the cutting off of electricity imported into a couple of Democrat-run states out of Ontario. And he said, we will not back down. We will be relentless. And Trump said, all right, well, we're going to do 50% tariffs. And then he's like, hey, can we get together and talk? You know what? I was just joking. I'm not going to do that electricity thing. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Wasn't Doug Ford the crack-smoking mayor of Toronto? Close. That was his brother. He did have a brother that was mayor of, I think it was Toronto. And much like Marion Barry, the mayor of Washington, D.C., at one point, he was caught on camera smoking crack. Marion Barry, he blamed a hooker, saying that the B word set me up. And in traditional Democrat response, I believe they actually erected a statue in his honor. I know he got reelected when he got out of prison, but I think that they even put a statue up for him. The Doug Ford's brother died of cancer some years ago, but there was video that, he was on, I think it was surveillance video with some sort of drug dealer. It ended up coming out in some case, but one of the exchanges in the video that got him in a lot of trouble was he was sitting there smoking crack, and he was all sweaty, and for reasons may be out of context, I don't know what the context was, yelled out F the minorities, just sort of randomly, I guess. But that caused him just a little bit of trouble. So that was Doug Ford's now deceased brother. Was it Rob?
Rob Ford.
Sounds like a Rob sort of thing.
I don't even
Rob,
know what that
you want to go?
means.
I don't know either. Smoking F the minority. It was something about minorities. It was derogatory. Speaking of derogatory, Democrat Representative Houlihan has filed a resolution to censure Lauren Boebert. You know why?
Why?
Because Lauren Boebert was on some show, Real America's Voice News. This wasn't even in Congress. It wasn't in any official capacity. She was on a news show. And so you remember Al Green.
Uh-huh.
Al Green is the guy who
Is that the angry old man with the cane?
Yes, who waved his walking stick at Trump and yelled. Well, she referred to it as his pimp cane. And so evidently that is a reason to censure her. I happen to think that's kind of funny, his pimp cane. I mean, maybe if this were from the floor of the House during some sort of speech, I don't know what decorum rules would allow for in terms of censorship in that capacity. I mean, the reason Green was censored is because here he was preventing the business of the day from being done. The business of the day, there are certain rules of order that occur so that business can be carried out. And you can do and say a lot of things, but if you violate those rules are in place for a reason. Then there are different remedies in which to deal with that. One of them, which we saw during Trump's address before Congress, is you remove the person. And that's why the Sergeant of Arms, I mean, it wasn't Trump that removed him. Trump had no authority to do so. Trump was a guest of Congress giving that speech. This is why Mike Johnson at that point called the Sergeant of Arms. And you notice there was no confusion about what to do. There was no, wait, am I allowed to do this? Yeah, this is how it works. And the Sergeant of Arms removed the guy, and then he got censured for it. And then Democrats sang a song, literally, when that was happening, because they're a bunch of weirdos. Remember, what was it, just less than a year ago? This is the party that was trying to label Republicans as weird. Remember that 2-week period where they acted
Just
like
weird.
Yeah, they acted like it was so obviously this coordinated effort at the time. Just one day, you had about a dozen different Democrats giving interviews, and they all act like it was just an original thought in these separate interviews. You know, it's just something about the Republic. They're just weird, and you look at their behavior. Oh my goodness gracious! So, pimp cane. Not it. Back to the point here, Boebert, she was on her own time. This was not in Congress. This was not during official business. It was not during his speech. And again, I don't even know if this would warrant censorship, in that capacity, but I would certainly say not when you're just out talking as a human being in America. Freedom of speech, all that stuff. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly cloudy skies with a high near 81. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 79. And looking ahead to Friday, we'll see a slight chance for storms in the afternoon, and then sunny skies with a high near 78.
Yesterday afternoon, House Republicans succeeded in passing a continuing resolution to fund the government through September. This is something that Trump wanted. In addition to funding the government, Republicans say the CR will freeze spending, secure the border, support Trump's America First policies. Despite Democratic opposition and potential GOP holdout, Speaker Mike Johnson expressed confidence Tuesday morning the measure would pass. Of course, it did. Republicans arguing that the continuing resolution was necessary to keep vital functions running while ensuring fiscal responsibility. Quote, Congress must keep the government open so that DOJ can continue to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse. This from Andy Harris, who is the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. Trump had urged Republicans last week to back the CR, emphasizing its importance in restoring financial stability, Great things are coming for America. I'm asking you to give us a few months to get us through to September so we can continue to put the country's financial house in order, he said last week. As expected, Democrats refused to support the continuing resolution. There was, it's the same sort of stuff. House Minority Leader and election denier Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat, New York, said without providing evidence, the Republican bill dramatically cuts health care, nutritional assistance for children and families, and veterans benefits. Okay, whatever. It's just it's the same tired BS. Now, the one individual who did come out against this as a Republican was Representative Thomas Massey, and he was not shy about this. He said from the get-go this is where he was going to stand, and there's been this public, I don't even want to say battle. Trump decided to have verbal war with Massey, going so far as to saying that he should be primaried in Kentucky, which I don't think is going to be successful, because what are you going to do? Find somebody that is more fiscally responsible than Massey? Now, this is the idea behind it. Well, first off, Democrats are now in the Senate in a worrisome place here, because this has to get some support as a continuing resolution, because it's not reconciliation. Reconciliation means you only need a majority of votes. Because it is not reconciliation, but a continuing resolution, it has to get 60 votes in the Senate, which means it needs some Democrats. And this is going to put Democrats in the position of, quote, shutting down the government. They've always had the benefit of the media on their side and the ability to, even if they were responsible for it, to claim that any government shutdowns were the result of Republicans. Now, the only tactic that Chuck Schumer could take as the Democrat leader in the Senate, which is one that's been taken before, is to say that, well, Republicans are really shutting down the government because they sent us something that they knew would be dead on arrival. And so because they sent something they knew wouldn't pass the Senate, they're the ones responsible for shutting down the government. I don't think that's going to work this time. And I think that Democrats know that that's not going to work this time. So what you have here is a need for a significant number of Democrats, 6 or 7, depending on a factor that I'll mention here in a moment, that are going to have to side with Donald Trump. And they are going, while you have Hakeem Jeffries, the election denier, out there leading the Democrats in the House, claiming that this slashes benefits for hungry people and sick people. It does all these horrible things. Well, then you have the Democrats in the Senate. Are they going to vote for it? But if they don't, then they are going to be largely painted, and I think a majority of Americans will see them as obstructionists who are responsible for shutting down the government. So they've really been put in a difficult position here. Now, there is one gamble they could take, and that is because of Rand Paul. Rand Paul, like Massey, has said he will not support this. So what Democrats could do is allow enough of their senators to vote for it so that it fails by one, not ties, because if it ties, then you've got the tiebreaker, Vice President Vance, and then it would move forward. But if you have it, if Rand Paul sticks to his guns on that, because if Rand Paul sticks to his guns on it, and this would be a gamble for the Democrats, you allow enough Democrats to vote for it, so all it needs is Rand Paul to support it for it to pass, but then Rand Paul says, nope, just like Massey, I'm going to stick to my guns here, and then they can blame, hey, it's not our fault. This was bipartisan. Hey, Republicans couldn't get their act together. Rand Paul's the one who held this up. Now, the gamble is, would Rand Paul hold fast in that situation? Or would he see the bigger picture with some conversations with Trump and recognize that that's not the hill at the moment to die on, and see the bigger picture. I mean, 60% I lean towards he would go ahead and relent in that. Probably, if they were wise, they would quietly let that circulate amongst Democrats, let them know that, so Democrats didn't even try that. I have no idea whether they would try it or not, but that's what I would do. Now, when it comes to Massey, and I want to talk about this because Trump has really lashed out at Massey because Massey did not join with all the other Republicans. But I get exactly where Massey's coming from, 100%. And I do not think that. I think reasonable people can look at what Massey has done here. Not that in the end it really didn't matter, which is why I don't think Trump should even worry about it. Certainly shouldn't make a deal of it, and certainly shouldn't push to have Massey primaried, given that Massey supporters are, a huge segment of that support base are also Trump supporters. But Massey he actually is being reasonable here, and I want to explain that because I know this becomes a huge subject matter. All the talk shows, and generally speaking, the consistent response to Massey is, well, he doesn't have a plan and he can't, win anyway. So what's the point? But I want to give some thoughts on that. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. What happens when the government shuts down? Well, we're told that only non-essential government workers do not work, which to me, that's a great way to figure out the Doge stuff real easy. Like, oh, all of those people, okay, we don't need them. These CR arguments sound almost exactly flip-flop by party. For the last several under Biden, now Dems say this and the Republicans say that. Now, the idea behind pushing, this is where Trump's position was on this continuing resolution, which the continuing resolution is like, oh, we've budgeted for this much money and we've run out. The continuing resolution just says, all right, well, we'll just continue to fund this stuff for this period of time. Government shutdowns is a tool that Democrats have always used in order to prevent Republicans from passing what it is that they want or for getting what they want. Trump recognizes that. So what Trump has wanted was this continuing resolution. That way, when it comes to what is going to be the meaningful attempts to really get some meaningful things done, that Democrats cannot use the threat of blocking stuff to shut the government down in order to do it. And so it's just to remove that tool. Now, Massey has said, I'm voting against this because it just continues to fund all of these things that we say that we're against. This is Massey's position. That it continues all of this Doge stuff that we keep talking about, this funds those things. This is contrary to everything that we claim that we support. Now, there really isn't any counter to that from Trump or the Republicans who support it in saying that, no, that's not true. But their argument is, yeah, we know, but we've got to do that for now so that Democrats cannot use the threat of a shutdown. And so, yes, this does continue to fund those things, but it's short term so that we can make meaningful changes long term. What I'm sure is the perspective of Massey is this is what we're told every time there's a continuing resolution. Every single time. Well, we have to do it short term because that will allow us to make meaningful changes. Massey's not being unreasonable here in the context of history and what Republican members of Congress and the American people and Republican voters have been told over and over and over and over again. Well, just this one last time. This has been going on for years with Republicans. I mean, Democrats too. And I know but I also understand the reality. I know what is happening here with Trump. I understand and appreciate that perspective. I do get a little frustrated, though, at people who there's this sense that you have to totally cheerlead on this issue for one side over the other. So if you recognize and understand the Trump perspective and the Republican Party perspective on this, that means that you have to paint Massey as some sort of horrific person. And I keep hearing this mantra over and over again, and that is, well, he doesn't even have a plan. And he can't win anyway, so what's the point? And the problem is, and this is where I'm sympathetic to Massey, and why I don't like that argument, is because that is a weapon that is used against conservatives all the time. All the time. It's the same thing, and it gets said by Republicans who, understandably, I'm not saying that they're wrong in their perspective, but it's this decision to attack somebody who gets tired of being told every single time this issue comes up. Now, we promise this is the last time we're going to do a continuing resolution, and we have to do it. See, the reason we have to do it is because then we're going to be able to do the real meaningful things, right? But then when it comes around, it's the exact same thing over and over and over again. We talked with Congressman Burleson last week, and he noted, we had this discussion, that during the whole, Speaker Johnson and will he, won't he, the negotiations for the previous continuing resolution, one of the triggers, if you will, that was put into it, or put into all of that, was that if there isn't an actual budget that is submitted, then any continuation of funding would include an automatic 1% cut. And that was put in there to get the the Masseys and the other conservative members on board. Because then it's like, well, I guess we can't lose, right? What did Congressman Burleson reveal to us? They just waived that. So it's irrelevant. It was a trick. It was a bait and switch. Now, I'm going to throw a caveat in here. We've got to get a traffic update. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see partly cloudy skies throughout the day with a high near 81. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 79. And looking ahead to Friday, we'll see a slight chance for storms in the afternoon, and then sunny with a high near 78.
I want a great homeloan.com. If you have any home loan needs, straight up, character team. I mean, these are your folks. Advice, information, questions that you may think are silly questions or questions. You're like, I don't want to call my bank because I don't really plan on getting a home loan right now, but if I call them and then I ask questions, or if I call this lender over here or there, they're going to have my number and they're going to constantly be calling. You've been in that situation before, right? Or, you're online and you inquire and then you just get the calls and the texts constantly coming. And so you just don't do it. And instead you walk around not knowing the answer to your questions and maybe not refinancing when it's a good time, or putting off getting the home loan to buy a new home when maybe it is the best time for you. You don't have to worry about any of those sort of tactics with the Carrickers and their team. They're there to provide you information. And then when it comes to the refinancing or the reverse mortgages or the home loan itself, first one or 80th one, they are there to help you. And it all starts at iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. Text on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Former Ron Paul state coordinator here. Massey is full of it. He voted for plenty of CRs. He voted to keep Big Spinner McCarthy. He campaigned for the Turtle McConnell I call BS. I think Trump also supported McConnell, so there's a little bit of, sometimes the game gets played. But so here's the back and forth. And again, ultimately, this, in terms of the vote, is irrelevant. Now, Massey had said, though, I'm not voting, and let me just read this to you. I'm not voting for the continuing resolution budget, cut, copy, paste omnibus this week. Why would I vote to continue the waste, fraud, and abuse Doge has found? We were told the CR in December would get us to March, when we would actually fight. Here we are in March, punting again, WTFO. Trump clearly not liking this position, noting that Congressman Thomas Massey of beautiful Kentucky is an automatic no vote on just about everything, despite the fact that he has always voted for continuing resolutions in the past. He should be primaried. I will lead the charge against him. He's just another grandstander who's too much trouble and not worth the fight. He reminds me of Liz Cheney before her historic record-breaking fall loss. The people of Kentucky won't stand for it. Just watch. Do I have any takers? Anyway, thank you again to the House Freedom Caucus for your many important votes. We need to make America great again. Massey responded to Trump's primary threat by vowing not to cave, saying POTUS is spending his day attacking me in Canada. The difference is Canada will eventually cave. He called Trump's afternoon Truth Social post misleading, saying he never voted for a CR that became law. He also stated the debt ceiling bill Trump was referring to had an 8% cut in discretionary spending, saying, do the research and you will find I have been consistent in it. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm one of these people that Massey has a point. I don't think you have to. Trash on Massey and think that he is, in the wrong here simply because you recognize the potential value in passing the continuing resolution. And the reason why, and, to the point that the person had sent in. Now, Massey says that, the CRs he voted for did not become law. And the person who texted in saying, well, he's voted for plenty of CRs. Well, Massey's point here, and I agree with him, is that, because we've been told it's the last one, and at some point we have to stop. And he's right. In December, Republicans and Republican voters were told, promise this is the last one. We just got to do this one. And this will be the last one. And then after this, we'll really, here we are again. You other than just ignoring that reality, you can't counter it. If you do, I don't know with what. It is true that for a very long time now, and I remember this because it frustrates me as a voter, I've been told this is the last continuing resolution. It's the last one. And we have to do it because this will allow us this upcoming time to really fight. And it is, here we are again. And there is a chance that this exact same conversation is going to happen again by the very people who are trashed on for wanting to stop the continuing resolutions, and they will be targeted by the people who claim, just like the last one and the previous one and the previous one, no, this is the last one. Because, see, this is going to allow Republicans not to have to worry about a shutdown, and it's just, like, at what point, it's gaslight. It really is gaslighting. Now, that being said, this is the caveat. Trump is involved. And Trump does operate differently. So as much as I share the frustration with Massey and am not angered by his decision to finally say enough is enough, I'm tired of being made a fool of here, tired of being told this is the last continuing resolution, so it stops now. I also recognize the reality of the fact that with Trump in the presidency, that this could very well be the last one. Now, somebody like Massey may see that as part of the problem, rationalizing why, well, no, this one will be the last one. But listen, I'm a firm believer that if you do the same thing over and over again, you're going to have the same outcome. Well, there is a very different variable this time around, and that's Trump. And so, given that there is a different variable involved here, I recognize that means that there could be a different outcome. And because of Trump's track record, I default to giving him benefit of the doubt. Now, that's just me. That's my position on it. Trump was, I believe, supportive of the continuing resolution back in December, but he wasn't president then, and so this is a situation in which this is the first at this time around with the vision of meaningful cuts of spending, meaningful tax cuts. This is the first continuing resolution situation in that context that Trump has been president, and so Trump is saying, "Listen, I'm telling you, I need this thing now." So. I understand and appreciate where Massey's coming from, and he is not wrong in what he says. But I also recognize the reality of a different variable, a very powerful, huge variable involved in this particular scenario, and that's Donald Trump. And so that's why, while it may sound like, once again, okay, here we go, another continuing resolution with the promise of not having another one, this time it's Trump saying it. And that's different. And if we do end up, once again, 6 months down the road, being told, well, now here's another continuing resolution, and we have to do it. You got to understand this is the last one. Then that'll be shame on my judgment. And anyone else who sees this as the way forward to meaningful change. I'm 65 to 75% sure, maybe even more, at this juncture, that this is going to be, at least for the time being, the last one, and that there will be, with the reconciliation under Trump, the things done for the most part that Trump wants done. This is one of those things only time will tell. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company, if you have hail damage from last summer and you haven't filed a claim, there's still time, but that time window is running out. The best thing to do is get yourself a free roof inspection with the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, before you file that claim, make sure you have the Pyramid team come out. They can see if you actually need a roof repair, maybe a full roof replacement, and then they work with you through that insurance process without making you sign anything. And not all roofing companies do that, by the way. And then they get you on the schedule, and it is as simple as that. So if it is time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company team out at your home and check, see if you have any hail damage from those summer storms last year, schedule that appointment with Josh today. And as always, you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing team at pyramidroofingmo.com or under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
We're on YouTube.
That's
if you wanna
right.
Watch
Hi.
the show. You can do that. Springfield's Talk 104.1. And past shows as well. So if you miss anything, you want to share, pass it along, feel free to do so. Of course, the podcast as well at ksgf.com, Spotify, iTunes, the app. Springfield protests will press Burleson on town halls as he calls them ineffective. Well, he's right. This is a news leader piece, and all of this is just all so cookie-cutter standard stuff. Some constituents of Missouri's 7th Congressional District are planning a protest demanding Burleson hold a town hall. Gee, I wonder what that would look like. I wonder if it would be filled with left-wing nutcases that scream and yell and disrupt things, making it lacking any sort of meaningful purpose other than the virtue signaling of the left. I just wonder which direction that would go. We all know which direction it would go. This is the whole point. The whole point is, we've already watched this unfold, and this isn't the first time that this has happened. You show up at town halls, you're extremely disruptive, and then that allows Democrats to go on television, which they've already done, and say, look, even in some of the deepest red areas that Trump won, people are so unhappy with what he's doing that they're showing up and shouting down Republicans. Yawn. Theater, lazy theater. The protests come after House Republicans were advised to stop conducting in-person town halls due to angry crowds complaining about Trump's federal cuts. It's not because they're angry crowds. It's because all of this stuff is AstroTurf. This is all fake. Just like everything else in the Democrat Party. Is there anything within the Democrat Party in recent history that's been authentic? Anything? This is all marketing for the left. That's all that it is. A group of residents of Missouri's 7th Congressional District planning a protest Thursday calling for Burleson to hold a town hall. In an effort to call upon Burleson to hold a town hall, a protest will be held 11 a.m. Thursday outside his Springfield office. A Facebook event page says Burleson is failing to do his job by not engaging in public dialogue with his constituents. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. I'm not saying that there aren't other members of Congress that engage with constituents as much as Congressman Burleson does, but I don't know if it would be possible to do it more than he does. I mean, this is a guy that is constantly attending events, constantly visiting with constituents. This is all that he does when he is back in his home district. Now, if the news leader were honest, they would mention that. That actually, we spoke with his local office to get a, listing just to see if these accusations are true as to what it was that his itinerary looks like when he's home. And we found that, gosh, that's pretty much all he does is visit with different constituents while he's back here. But interestingly enough, the news leader didn't bother to do that. I wonder why that would be. The page reads, direct engagement with the community should be an exception, not a blah. It's just the same crap, same stupid crap. and then again falsely painting these different town hall events in which left-wingers show up in order to stage this faux outrage of random and regular constituents, oftentimes former Trump supporters, at portraying it as being authentic when it's not. During an interview Friday on the Politically Speaking Hour with St. Louis Public Radio, Burleson said town halls are not an effective way to connect with constituents and instead provide a platform for only political nut jobs to show up, and that's true. The reason that they aren't an effective way to connect with constituents is because of the left. They disrupt them. Even if you agree with their position, you have to admit, when you watch these videos of them screaming and yelling and name-calling and disrupting things, that is not allowing for effective dialogue with constituents. It's a toddler throwing a temper tantrum. By the way, it's not only, prior to this election, Democrats started having to deal with this some as well. Ocasio-Cortez faced it in a number of instances. You would have these left-wing extremists that would show up, all for the purposes of disrupting these events. Kamala Harris on the campaign trail dealt with it in some instances. But now that Republicans are in charge, the focus is back on them for the extreme left nut jobs. Burleson said, "You're just asking for an in-person version of the Twitter hellscape that sometimes exists. Normal people who go out about their daily lives do not choose to go to the event." And again, that's accurate. Now, that's not to say that you won't have normal people show up wanting there to be some sort of meaningful dialogue. But again, the problem is their time gets wasted by the left-wingers who hijack these events. And this is why they're calling for him. This is a pressure campaign that is having an assist by the news leader to try and force Burleson, hoping that Burleson will be like, well, gosh, the news leader wrote this story and it's looking bad and people are going to think that I don't visit with constituents, so I better do this. And then, this allows the left to do exactly what they want and film it and put it on TikTok and YouTube and everywhere else and falsely label this as a natural reaction of just normal voters because Trump has turned out to be such an outrageous president that even people who voted for him are so regretful and angry that they're showing up and they're letting their elected official know. It's all total, complete BS. And unfortunately, again, a local paper here, the news leader, is doing what it can in order to help the left-wingers try to make this happen. Now, I don't know whether Burleson, I suspect, based off what he said and the fact that he's a relatively intelligent human being in my assessment, he's not going to fall for this. And if people are really, truly, genuinely interested or want a lawmaker that is going to have meaningful engagement with constituents, if Burleson decided to have one of these town hall meetings in lieu of what he has been doing, he would be going the opposite direction because what he's doing now is serving that purpose. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. So whose Facebook page is this that you're telling me,
Oh, I
Sarah?
was on the official Eric Burleson government official page.
So we're talking about this news leader piece, and all these people that they just want Burleson to meet with constituents and have a town hall, and this is all a setup in order to scream and yell at him, falsely portraying that as people are just so outraged. Even and it's they see it as particularly effective in the 7th Congressional District or areas like that across the country because they're very deep red. They vote overwhelmingly for Trump, and then they can falsely portray it as, look, even in Trump country, how mad people are. I love part of the statement they make, like, hey, these aren't fake people. These are actual constituents. Well, yeah, probably they are people who live in the 7th Congressional District. But that doesn't mean that they're not nut jobs that are all corralled together in order to try and create some sort of fake scenario that paints the Trump administration as extreme. I mean, just because they're actual constituents doesn't mean that they legitimately want to have a free exchange of ideas with Congressman Burleson. And you said that's evidenced by some of the comments on the Facebook page.
They are legit nut jobs. I'm
Of course
serious.
they are.
You should read some of these comments. These people are insane.
And let's also not dismiss the notion, the increased violence that left-wingers bring to events. Let's not live in this world of delusion and pretend that people, particularly emotionally unhinged individuals that are on the left ideologically, that they haven't proven to be extremely dangerous at times. So you do have a safety factor in there as well. Speaking of nut jobs, every March Madness era, and we've started doing these bracket things. I think we've done 3 now. Is that right?
I believe so.
Because all of the stations are like, you know how this works. Everybody tries to capitalize off these cultural events. You have fast food restaurants that will try to have March Madness themed stuff, and then TV radio stations, March Madness brackets. And so that was something that some time ago all of our stations like, oh, brackets. And I think the music stations would do artists and songs. And so we came up with different things that we thought would be engaging for you. One of them, I believe, was Biden quotes.
And then Trump nicknames.
Trump nicknames. I think that was the first one.
Yeah.
So what we're going to be doing this time around, just to give you a heads up, and I think it'll launch in a couple of different weeks, it is going to be what we call love letters from the left, and it is either postings or emails or text messages that we have received from what many of you would characterize as emotionally unhinged lefties. And so that is what the bracket this year will be, messages coming from those people directly to us, me specifically, Sarah specifically as well. And we think that you'll get some enjoyment out of that. So that'll be coming up here before too long. Another hour straight ahead news in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. there was a story circulating, and I believe it originated the Wall Street Journal, reported that FBI Director Kash Patel wanted a direct line to the Oval Office, deviating from department policy. It seems as if it's a move to circumvent Attorney General Pam Bondi. Writing among Kash Patel's first questions as FBI director was one that underscored who was now in charge. What was the best way to call the Oval Office on a secure line from both his office at the FBI and from home, Patel asked officials, according to people familiar with his inquiry. While every FBI director since Hoover has taken pains to keep the White House at arm's length, the new Trump administration has taken the opposite track, working to bring the traditionally independent ethos of the FBI and Justice Department firmly within the president's grasp. Patel's determination to keep in close contact with Trump himself is an arrangement outside the traditional chain of command in which the FBI director reports to the Deputy Attorney General and the president usually talks only to the Attorney General. It is but one example of how on matters big and small, administration officials, including Patel and senior officials at the Justice Department, have deferred to Trump and his Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, since taking office, the People said. Miller has regularly talked to the top officials at the Justice Department, including about the FBI, the People said. Now, this, of course, apparently is not true. And the response to it from the public affairs director at the FBI, Ben Williams, was simply the following. Per me, this is BS. There was a truth out. He had the story, and that was his response to the story. It's not true. But how laughable this is anyhow, given what we know about how closely the FBI was coordinating with the Biden administration to set up Trump. The reason that we know that the Russian collusion hoax was a hoax that was developed and paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign was because of then FBI Director James Comey's notes in the Oval Office with Obama and Biden and the director of the CIA and the Attorney General. He took notes of it. This is an FBI that falsified evidence before the FISA court so that it could spy on the Trump campaign. The massive amount of coordination we've seen between the silencing of whistleblowers to protect Hunter Biden by the FBI. The sword and shield of the Democrat Party. So the laughable position, number one, the story that appears not to be true. But even if it were, well, now this is just so unusual. There's always been this unspoken wall between the FBI director and the president. They've always just taken such painstaking steps to make sure that there was no inappropriate coordination whatsoever. I mean, this is, come on. What an absolute joke. Gavin Newsom is still dealing with additional fallout from his decision to sit down with people with whom he disagree and have conversations. And this, once again, it's the conversation that keeps paying off, and that is with Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA founder. Of course, he's nationally syndicated host. We carry him here weekdays 8 to 11 p.m. The original round of controversy, if you will, mileage that Republicans got out of that interview was when Gavin Newsom tried to sort of walk the middle road when it comes to transgenders and saying, yeah, there's fairness here as an issue when it comes to girls being forced to compete against boys. But, he tried to have it both ways. And when you do that, you tick off the left, and then everyone else realizes what you're doing. So it doesn't work. Well, he apparently also, during that interview, claimed that when it came to the condescending term Latinx, this is a term that white people on the left began to tell Latin people that they needed to give up their centuries of culture and language and adopt Latinx because, like a lot of languages, you've got male and female, right? Words, Latino, Latina. And the left has tried to erase the realities of gender, and so rich, wealthy lefties that are primarily white began telling the Hispanic community, the Latin community, that, oh, you need to change who you are and start this Latinx stuff. Overwhelmingly, that community's like, no, I don't think so. Eventually, Democrats saw the writing on the wall, and they quietly started backing away from it. Well, Gavin Newsom claimed that he never, nor his office, ever used that terminology. Well, it did not take long to find multiple posts out of his office on his own account using the term Latinx. On his personal account, he used the term when discussing COVID-19. He messaged, COVID-19 disproportionately impacts the Latinx community. Rising rates in the Central Valley are concerning. In 2023, he said that the Republican Party has politicians that are banning not assault rifles, but the word Latinx. So not only did he use Latinx, but he defended it and the use of it. So let me tell you what this is a result of, and I just love this stuff. This is the result of someone, as a Democrat, who has so long been protected by the media, he didn't ever have to worry about keeping up with the truth. See, if this were an interview that he had done with ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, and he made those comments, they never would have fact-checked it. Even if they were informed, hey, he's kind of lying about this, they would have let it go. Democrats have so long been allowed to just say the most outrageous things that are so clearly untrue, and not having to worry about it because they've been sitting down with their allies, whose goal is to get them elected. And so it's a friendly interviewing them, so they can say whatever they want. They can make whatever claims they want about the opposition. They can make whatever claims they want to try to rewrite their own history. So I think that something Gavin Newsom did not necessarily think about is that if he sits down with people that are not his political allies, number one, they may actually ask him questions that are going to lead him to have to talk about things that are not popular with the average American, like Latinx. Secondly, learning that when you lie about it and you're not doing an interview with someone who is a friendly, you may get called out on it. This is a whole new world for somebody like Gavin Newsom. I can't just make things up and go unchallenged. It's just so... It just adds to his ick factor, and it is a further recognition of what the Democrat Party has become, and that is just any given day wake up and claim that you're something totally different than you actually are. Springfield's Talk 1041, latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly cloudy skies throughout the day with a high near 81. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 79. And looking ahead to Friday, we'll see a slight chance for storms in the afternoon, and then sunny skies with a high near 78.
Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. You got to send in your comments, your jokes, your observation, your questions. It's a great resource to learn. For example, someone had texted in, the Mueller report proved Trump colluded with Russia. Mueller stated that he couldn't charge a sitting president, and that was the only reason Trump got away with it. So I was able to be very helpful and send an NPR story about it, titled Mueller Report Finds No Evidence of Russian Collusion. So see, it's a great place to learn. This station's a great place to learn. I know a lot of you find it difficult to believe that there are people out there who believe that Russia colluded with Trump, and that that person, I think that person genuinely thinks, probably because of just the media outlets that they generally get their information from, that, yeah, Mueller said, oh, yeah, no, there was proof, but he's a sitting president. I can't charge. This is one of the reasons Democrats were so mad. They were really upset by all of that, because the opposite was said, that there was no evidence of collusion. But hopefully, even people that listen just to get angry, people that listen to, I don't know, for whatever other reasons, but they're extreme left wingers, which, you know, everybody has their own personal belief system, that they will learn things. And it doesn't mean that one's mind has to be changed, but if, you know, it's just one individual who tunes in and believes that, no, the Mueller report said that there was Russian collusion, and learns that that isn't the truth, then, you know, that's a good day. A good day for everyone. Revealed, Gavin Newsom, I got another Gavin Newsom story here, secretly funded a monument to himself inside San Francisco City Hall.
Of course he did.
I know. I mean, Can it be any more? Here's a picture of it too. Look at it. Does it not? It's a bust of
that is
him.
so
Yes, it's a bust of him
ugh.
looking ever so slightly
Yeah,
off.
very stoic.
Yes, off into the distance. Or remember when he visited China, he brought a photographer to
Yes.
take pictures of him, and
Just
like the top button
unbelievable.
undone. He and David Muir would make great roommates. Those two guys, they're both just so gross and they're just so sleazy. Kind of remind me a little bit of Drew Barrymore's love interest, her character's love interest in The Wedding Singer. You remember him?
I've never seen The Wedding Singer. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, you would really like it. I think it's a good movie. I don't like rom-coms at all, but that is a really good movie. And but yeah, so she's dating, and he's just okay. Have you seen Hot Rod?
No.
Oh my gosh, Hot Rod is one of the most underrated films. And anyone who disagrees is allowed to, but you may be wrong. Hot Rod is it is such a great movie.
I feel like
It
I'd like it.
depend-
It's got Andy Samberg in it. Right?
Yes, yeah.
I like him.
It does. Now it depends on your humor. Everyone's humor is different. So some people might watch it and be like, "This is kind of dumb." I think it's hilarious. But anyhow, Will Arnett or not, Will
yeah,
Arnett,
yeah, yeah.
he is in it, and he plays the love interest of. Liza Fisher, isn't that her name? She was married to anyway, she's in it, and he plays her love interest, and he kind of reminds me of Gavin Newsom too. His character in that movie, just the real. You roll your eyes and you're like, "Are you serious about this guy?" That's Gavin Newsom and David Muir of ABC. I cannot believe ABC has that guy on just because he is so gross like that. Anyway, here's this story. California Governor Gavin Newsom secretly paid for his own monument inside San Francisco Hall, according to a book released Tuesday, Fool's Gold. The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All, written by Susan Crabtree and Jed McFadder. We should try and get one of them on as author of the week. Allege that Newsom arranged for a bronze bust of himself to be sculpted inside City Hall to commemorate his term as mayor using funds that he controlled. Newsom then allegedly feigned ignorance of the identity of the private donors who funded the bust, as well as some uncertainty about its design. Other mayors who have also been honored with busts inside City Hall. The funds for Newsom's bust were to be donated by private individuals. Quote, behested payments are donations to charitable causes that politicians in California often ask donors to make on their behalf. They are widely considered corrupt, especially when the payments provide some benefits to the politicians. Newsom, for example, had requested payments to a project controlled by his wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom. An analysis of Newsom's behested payments revealed that between late 2015 and early 2016, 3 private organizations each donated to a nonprofit called Community Initiatives. As it turns out, 2 of those payments came from companies owned by Newsom, Balboa Cafe Partners and Plump Jack Management Group. Newsom's companies specifically earmarked these behested payments for mayoral bust of San Francisco City Hall. According to the California Fair Political Practice Commission, Balboa Cafe Partners donated $5,000 in 2016 towards his mayoral bust, and Plump Jack donated the same amount. Newsom, of course, involved in both companies. The H&B and Lucille Horn Foundation also donated $10,000 at Newsom's behest. The total cost of the bust, $97,000.
Jeez.
$97,000 that Newsom funneled to have a bust of himself put in City Hall in San Francisco. Now, when he was running for lieutenant governor at the time, there was a story about it in the San Francisco Gate that read as follows. The honoree proclaimed himself a bit reluctant. Jesus, so disgusting. I don't want to call it embarrassing, but it's a strange thing, the lieutenant governor said. I'm just awkward about it, but now the word is out. The bust is the brainchild of Newsom's supporters, and it will be paid for with private funds they will raise, said Newsom. It has, quote, been in the works for a few years, but no one's worked on it. It's been an idea that's been floated around. He says he didn't even know who those supporters and fundraisers are. Well, apparently it was him. Sculptor Bruce Wolfe sounds sure the clay will become bronze and that the bust will come to fruition. But if no one's interested, said Newsom, we can mold it back into a big ball. Oh, isn't he just so humble? He's such a humble guy. Golly gee whiz, I have no idea who would do something like that. What a piece of work. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. All right, everyone. Coming up on Friday, a couple of things. We will be broadcasting live at Scramblers Friday Roadshow, sponsored we've got actually some really cool new sponsors. That is Shirley's Heating and Air, so welcoming them to the KSGF family. We may be a bit dysfunctional, but we're a family nonetheless, and we welcome you. And then also Local for Less. Now, I believe as we speak, there are some leftover Local for Lesses for Five Guys. I think yesterday they said that there were still some, right?
I
Yes,
believe
yeah,
so.
in the meeting. And so Five Guys, if you like Five Guys, I don't know if it's 15 for 30 or 30 for 60 or something, but it's a half price. You buy the certificate. I think you can get two. So you know.
Oh, yeah, we still have about 40 of those.
Yeah, we had a bunch of them. Usually the food ones just go so quickly, and I don't know why those haven't. Five Guys extremely popular, and they're a little pricier than some other burger places. I haven't been in a long time, to be honest with you, so I don't know where they are in terms of pricing compared to others, to be honest. But hey, half price, so what a deal! You can go now and get some of those. In fact, if there are any left over after the show, I think I'm probably going to do it myself. Friday at 10 o'clock, $25 will get you a $50 gift certificate to Springfield's Little Theater for Exit Laughing. That is a performance at Landers Theater, March 14th through 23rd. So you will purchase the certificate and then use that in order to purchase the tickets. Let's get a traffic update, then more. Yes, there is more. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly cloudy skies with a high near 81. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 79. And looking ahead to Friday, we'll see a slight chance for storms in the afternoon and then sunny skies with a high near 78.
Someone had texted in that they're going to have to now check for Wedding Singer and Hot Rod, two totally different types of films.
Oh, so
they're both comedy.
I'm not the only one that.
No, Michelle.
Oh, okay.
Michelle had texted in. She's going to have to check.
Well, we can watch them together, Michelle.
She said she was going to check Hulu. I don't know. I'm not sure what streaming platform they're on. Now, the Wedding Singer, it is Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore. It's more of a romantic comedy, but it's funny. It's a good one. And I actually saw that at, what was it, Palace Theater over there on the Chestnut Expressway. It's a church now. I think that's the last movie I saw there before. I mean, that was back in I think 96, 97 when that movie came out. Hot Rod, though, it has...
it's on Pluto TV for free.
Oh, it is?
Mm-hmm.
Do they on that break for commercials?
Yeah.
Okay. Sandberg, Bill Hader, Danny McBride. These are some of the people in Hot Rod. Sissy Spacek, Isla Fisher... Will Arnett, Chris Parnell, and the guy let's see here, Ian McShane, which he is well known. I wasn't real familiar with him. He was in Deadwood, and I think he's normally a very serious character, but he plays a role in that film as well. It's what some people would consider dumb comedy. I think it's a really funny movie, so I recommend it. Why do we even try? So I mentioned earlier that someone had texted in claiming, it was a lefty, that that the Mueller report said that there was proof that there was collusion between Trump and Russia, and that the only reason they didn't prosecute him is because you couldn't prosecute a sitting president. So I had sent that person, just so they know, I sent from NPR. Like, you can't claim they're right-wing. Mueller report finds no evidence of Russian collusion. And then it's an interview with somebody who covered it. And, of course, anyone who watched the hearings knows this. You watched it. That's why the Democrats were so upset. So the response, this is the problem that we have in this country. The story's relying on Bill Barr's comments that there was no collusion. We all know that was a bunch of crap. Story simply goes on from there to point out Russia's involvement. Oh, Russia is involved. So even when go watch the hearings. I remember the level of crestfallenness of the media, and it was mixed with a degree of anger that after all of that buildup and all of the promises and the leaks coming out that, they got this and they got that, only for Mueller to find that there was no evidence of Russian collusion, and just how, just how devastated they were by that. And there was a bit of a sense of betrayal because they kept getting leaked that there was, and Adam Schiff was one of those individuals, these people that, you just wait till this comes out. And then it was, a big nothing. But yeah, just go watch the hearings. Or better yet, if you're a lefty who refuses to, recognize reality, just find a news story. Just find one of Mueller talking about, yes, that we have the proof. Find one of those news stories. I don't mean find some commentator who claims that he said, no, find the clips from the hearing where he unveiled everything, where he was being asked questions and so forth, and find the quote, find the audio of him confirming that there was collusion between Russia and Trump, but the only reason that he wasn't recommending charges is because you can't charge a sitting president. You find that. You're going to be looking a long time because it don't exist. Called reality. Move on to something else. Sure. Here's the weird thing about people on the left. Trump is a human being, which means that as a human being, you're not perfect. So there are a lot of legitimate criticisms. I don't care who you are. If you can't find a criticism or something that you disagree with, something that you think an individual is wrong about, then you probably aren't thinking for yourself. And so you can almost, you can always find things. For example, yesterday we talked about the call by Josh Hawley and Luna of Florida, the price controls on credit card companies. That's wrong. And the story referenced that Trump mentioned it during a campaign stop once when he's running for president. Well, he's wrong. He's absolutely wrong. Price controls don't work. So for all of the things out there that people, particularly if you disagree with Trump ideologically, that you can put forth a legitimate argument, disagreement that he's wrong on this, why is it that they cling to things that are just so untrue, that have no connection to reality? Like, you can't find anything legit. It's just weird to me. Yeah. I want to play this audio. Slotkin is the Democrat senator that what I would call normal Democrats, not the unhinged crazy psychopaths, but the normal Democrats see as the way forward. They see her as appealing to normal people. They recognize that they have lost the American people. And in fact, there's new polling that has come out in terms of their branding, and they are underwater on everything from, do you think that Democrats support the working person? A majority of people do not believe that. Do you think that Democrats have, what is important to you? Is that part of their goal in that they recognize that and want to help you? A majority of Americans say no. So they've really done a tremendous amount of damage to their reputation and their imaging, their marketing. And the Democrats that recognize that, they are putting people like Slotkin up there in order to try and renormalize Democrats to the average American. The problem is Slotkin wants to have it both ways and at the same time may be considered normal, or may be considered normal compared to the extreme lunatics, but when it comes to normal people, she still misses the mark. And here she is on The View talking about the American voter.
To me, again, representing a state where people voted for Trump and voted for me, I have responsibility to represent my entire state. Mm-hmm. But I don't think there's anyone who feels like what's going on right now is normal, even if you voted for Trump, mm-hmm. right? I think there's a feeling in the country. Yeah. I mean, I often say this, we're about to turn 250 years old, mm-hmm. right? We're still pretty young for a country. These are our like our angry teenage years, right? We are going through this push and pull where we're happy, we're sad, we want this, we want that. And what do you do when you have a teenager who's threatening themselves and others? You just try to get them through this period alive so that their brain can fully form and you can come back to kind of what a country.
Talking about Trump?
No, I'm talking about our country. We're pendulum swinging.
So here you have Slotkin, and this is pretty standard reaction that you get from the Democrats. Whenever they lose, it's not their fault, it's yours. If they have any fault, it's failing to come down to your level and explain things to you in a manner that makes you understand. That's the only time that they've ever taken any responsibility for losing. Well, we failed to properly communicate to people how great things actually are. That's the only form of responsibility that they will claim. Otherwise, it's your fault. You just don't understand. You don't appreciate it. And you're just like some unruly, childish teenager that's upset. Now, first off, she opens by claiming that, well, now under Trump, things aren't normal. Well, what is normal? I mean, really, is she going to claim that the 4 years of Biden was normal? Open borders? Pornography in kids' libraries? You have field trips to strip clubs? Parents being tracked by the FBI as potential domestic terrorists? Chinese spy balloons allowed to fly over our most sensitive facilities, beaming back information directly to Beijing? Funding somebody else's war for 3 years? Funding the country of Iran to the point that they are able to fund the terrorist attack against Israel? A president of the United States that we are now told by many of his own people was in the deep depths of dementia to the point that they couldn't even allow his own cabinet members to have access to him? World leaders acknowledging in that Wall Street Journal expose that they were assigned to be his caretaker whenever he would come visit? Is this the normal that she's talking about? Now, that's separate from whether or not what we're going through now is normal. But I'm just, what is the baseline for Slotnick when she claims that things aren't normal now under President Trump? I would agree things aren't normal under Trump. And frankly, that's why a lot of Americans voted for him. Because normal in Washington, D.C. and normal in government is something that most Americans have been very tired of for some time. And for the first time, they felt as if Trump was somebody that, regardless of political affiliation, he was different. He was different than Republicans. He was different than Democrats. And the reaction of the establishment demonstrated that they, too, felt he was much different and not normal. So, yeah, when it comes to the way that Washington has been done with spending, with just everything, Trump is not normal. And so when he's in charge, and this is, again, what a lot of people like about him, he's doing what he said he was going to do. That also not normal. So she's right on that. The problem the Democrat Party has, though, is when she describes the fact, and you and I as Americans who have decided we're tired of the normal behavior of Washington, D.C., that means that we're the ones in the wrong. We're the ones that are a bunch of, crazy, out-of-control teenagers that need, she used the verbiage that, we have to stop them from hurting themselves. That's that elitist view, that they have to step in to make sure that we quit making mistakes with our own lives, with the way we vote. That is not helpful to the Democrat cause. That is not going to help. If this is at least a test by the Democrat Party to put someone out that in their minds is going to resonate with the average American, this is not working. The idea that the majority of Americans who voted in a manner that she is describing as just teenagers whose brains haven't even formed yet are going to go, oh gosh, I never thought of it that way. I guess I'm going to switch back over and start voting for Democrats. Really? And if your argument is that the people who don't vote for you are people who act like they are a bunch of emotionally unhinged teenagers, you might want to make sure that people within your own party quit behaving the way that they are. Screaming at events, dropping the F-bomb because it's like a 12-year-old who for the very first time learned it, or an 8-year-old, and so they're using it all the time because they feel cool. Or having little paddle boards with sayings on them in Congress as the president gives a speech, or standing up and screaming. If that's the behavior of your party, you may not want to be pointing fingers at the American people and the American voter as the ones acting like out-of-control teenagers. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. There is a group of citizens that refers to itself as Operation Soap that has been getting increasing attention, and I've noticed that even some of the local media outlets have begun to cover them. Now, I say out of the gate here that for a few weeks now, I have been communicating with them, or at least one of the individuals, about setting up a time where we can just sit down and have an interview, a conversation with them in relatively long form, so that they can have an outlet outside of news in order to talk about what it is that they do. Because even if you are a local TV outlet that has the absolute most unbiased, best intentions, you're still having to cut down sound bites to like 7 seconds. And so you may be part of an organization, you sit down for an hour interview, and then there's a 90-second story, and you talked to them for an hour and a half, and there's 7 seconds of what you said. And that's just that format. This is the benefit of the format that we have, and that is the ability to have those conversations. If you're not familiar with Operation Soap, you're probably familiar with the concept, and that is people that will online pose as underage children, that then there is an online engagement with adults that at some point in the back and forth arrange for a meet up with that underage person in order to have sex with them. Pedophiles, generally what they're called. This really, the whole concept of this began, I believe, as best as my memory serves, years ago with that, what was the guy's name? Do you remember those? The guy that it was, I don't know if it was Dateline. I think it was NBC.
Oh, yes.
And why don't you have a seat over here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see.
In my head, it's Keith Morrison, but I know that's not who it is. It's some guy. He ended up moving to Florida or so. I don't remember what happened with him. But To Catch a Predator was the name of the show. And it was similar in fashion, but they were official media people, and so they would. Chris Hansen, yes, thank you. And they would end up, whether it's a chat room, and frankly, I don't know, maybe this is some of the conversation that we will have with them when we are able to sit down with them, or him, or I don't know how many with the organization we're going to be able to visit with, but they would end up in these communications with somebody, and it's almost always a male adult. I've never seen anything other than that. And they're coming to a house that they believe is going to lead to them meeting a girl that they have been told is maybe 14 years old. And they would have in that situation an undercover officer being the 14-year-old. It was somebody obviously wasn't a minor but looked like a minor. And then Chris Hansen would, the girl would walk out, Chris Hansen would walk in, and like, what are you doing here? And just that whole thing. And why don't you have a seat over here? They'd always say it. It became somewhat of a meme. And as far as I know, in terms of, I don't want to say pop culture, but in culture, the widespread knowledge of that sort of thing began with To Catch a Predator. With the ability of average Americans to record things in high quality and post them on social media, this has led to individuals and organizations doing this sort of thing on their own. And locally is this Operation Soap. Now, they've been doing this for some time. I've been aware of this, and it's similar in fashion. What they do that I think makes it interesting is they stream this stuff live. So they will have online engagement with someone who believes they are an underage person, and it is very clear through the text messaging that they want to have illegal relations with that underage person, and it's very clear that they know the person that they're talking to is supposedly underage, that it demonstrates their state of mind. And then they say, okay, we'll meet up at this place. And so Operation Soap goes and finds that person, and they stream it live as it's happening. I'll have to admit this. I don't know if it means anything one way or another, but because I follow them on Facebook, I got an alert I think it was a Saturday night or Friday night, Saturday night. We're sitting at home, and they were just beginning one, and I had it up on the big on our big 80-inch TV. We were just sitting there watching. It was kind of an interesting thing to watch, knowing that it was happening at that moment. There is sort of a weird entertainment factor in the sense that you're engaged in it. Part of the reason that they are making local headlines is because there are apparently some jurisdictions that are, I don't know if I'd say working with them, because I don't know that that's the case. But whenever they call law enforcement, they're like, yep, they grab the person, arrest him, and then press charges. I believe, if memory serves, Bolivar is a jurisdiction in which they have been very grateful with the fact that they have seen Bolivar respond in an appropriate manner as law enforcement in terms of dealing with these people. They have also been very, very clear that Greene County is not, in their assessment, accommodating whatsoever when it comes to this. And so, in fact, there was a Color 10 story in which Greene County Prosecutor Patterson is talking about how, this isn't a good thing, this shouldn't be done. And one of their big beefs, Operation Soap, is the refusal of Greene County, claiming that we can't do anything about this. And Operation Soap's response appears to be, well, other jurisdictions are, so why aren't you? Anyhow, Lebanon recently, there was a back and forth with them. So Operation Soap is the name of the organization if you want to follow them on Facebook. And then Color 10, go to ozarksfirst.com. You can see some stories there as well. And we have set up an interview to do, but I want to make sure it's actually going to happen because things change before we talk about when it's going to be. But I wanted to let some of you know, because I know some of you have reached out even saying, hey, you should have these guys on. This is something that we have in the works. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. All right, everyone, have a great rest of your day. Chat with you tomorrow. Glenn Beck is coming up